Hi everyone, welcome to another Springer Spaniel video. The last couple of videos that I put up were all to do with Pip, who is now coming up to 3 years old. So the first video was all about her when she was a puppy. And the second video was celebrating her first birthday, and I haven't really posted any videos since then. Now, a lot of you have commented and asked questions on those videos, all to do with what she eats, how much exercise she gets, some training tips, hints, whether I cut her coat, whether I wash her. So what I wanted to do was create a Springer Spaniel training tips video and include a lot of that information in this video for you. So to caveat this video, I'm not an expert trainer by any stretch of the imagination. My experience is simply training 3 or 4 different Spaniels over my lifetime. They're very, very well behaved dogs. Pip herself is from a working line, and she's trained to flush and hunt naturally, and as you know, Springer Spaniels want to learn. They want to be trained. So what we're going to do in this video is break the tips down into different sections, and the first section I want to look at is what you may read on a lot of forums and blog posts is about the pack mentality of Springer Spaniels. After that, we're then going to look at some building blocks for a good foundation for training a Springer Spaniel. And then after that, just some hints and tips on working, keeping their attention to you, and generally making sure that you're the one in control and they're doing what you want them to do rather than what they want to do, which is something Pip has an issue with occasionally. Don't you, Pip? Yeah, it's a sheepish look. There are quite a few other Springer Spaniel training channels out there if you want to check those out as well. So Springer Spaniel Full has lots of great content on training, especially for working dogs. And then there's a few other actual dog training centers that have their own YouTube channels as well. So again, I'm not the expert. Also check them out for further tips and professional advice. Okay, so let's start with pack mentality. Dogs are pack animals, and the way that they would function if they were out in the wild is they would assume an order, if you like, or a leader at the top and then lower ranks lower down. So typically the alpha male, if you like, or alpha female in Pip's case, would be the one who would be in charge of defending the pack, being aggressive towards people people or things or animals that they didn't know. They would always eat first. They would, if they could, sleep at a higher level than the rest of the pack. And there's various other different things like that allow dogs to create that hierarchy of roles in the pack mentality. So what we want to do with your Springer is make them aware that you are the pack leader and that they are much lower down in the pecking order. Now this is particularly important if there are children and kids in the house. You need to make sure that the Springer Spaniel or Spaniels sit lower than the children. Now if that doesn't happen and a pack mentality isn't developed, what you'll probably see is they will bark a lot at the door for passers-by because they're trying to assume that role of the security guard, if you like. You'll probably see dogs barking a lot at people who walk past in the street, for example. Again, that's just because the pack mentality isn't there. The dog feels they need to step up to that role and protect both them and you. So if you remove all responsibility from the dog in the home, you'll typically get a lot more of a relaxed dog, a lot calmer, and they won't feel like they have any responsibility to do anything. So that's what we tried to do with Pip. Pip's fantastic in the house. She's never shown aggression towards anyone or anything, and that's purely because of that pack mentality. So now let me run through a few examples of how you can enforce that you are the leader in this pack mentality. Excuse Pip, don't know what she's doing. The first thing is Spaniels will often sort of get in your way in front of you, and what you need to ensure is that you are the one leading the way and they're not getting in your way. So A lot of this stems from actually when you're walking them on the heel as well. You want them to walk slightly behind you, not to the side or not in front. If you come home, and obviously your Springer Spaniel is going to be ridiculously excited to see you, as they always are. And the trick here, and it's very, very difficult, is to actually ignore them when you first come through the door. Walk past them, don't look at them. Go and drop your things, take your coat off, take your shoes off, whatever else, and then give them affection on your terms. Again, based on the pack mentality, the lead dog will take responsibility and will generally sleep at a higher level than the rest of the pack. So what you don't want to do is let the Springer Spaniel sleep at either the same level as you or above you in some way. So say you've got some sort of, I don't know, mezzanine bunk and it might sleep up there and you're below. That's such a bad thing to do from a pack mentality point of view. So ensure you always sleep at a higher level than a Spaniel. Generally within a pack, the lead dog would eat first and then the other pack members would then sort of eat after the leader. So ideally you would eat your dinner, tea, lunch, breakfast first, and then feed the Springer Spaniel so they know that they're lower down the pecking order. And last but not least is discipline. And this particularly when they are a puppy, actually. So if they are doing something wrong or they're showing some sort of alpha male tendencies, is to then, you have to then discipline them. So imagine in a pack, the leader would tell off the sort of younger kids, if you like, by barking or growling at them. And in a similar way, you should do that with them. You know, discipline can take various forms, but even just making sure that you change your tone of voice and them knowing that you're unhappy with them, for them to sort of cower and say, oh, I'm sorry, just shows that you're disciplining them, and they will take that on board and realise that you're the one who's leading the pack and not them. Thank you. Look at the camera, see? Moving on to the next stage. Yeah? Good. Okay, with the pack mentality now sorted out. Cut. Okay, with the pack mentality now explained, we'll now move on to what I would class as the three sort of main building blocks of Springer Spaniel training. Now, those building blocks are consistency, control, and companionship. Okay, so first up is consistency, and this is generally about doing the same things again and again, day after day, for the first 12 months or more of the Springer Spaniel's life. This is everything from your basic commands: sit,
sit, sit, sit,
stay,
wait, wait, wait,
fetch, any sort of quartering.
See over here, see over here, see over here. Girl, find him, find him, find him. See here.
All those things should be delivered on a daily basis. And the more they get used to those commands, the more they get used to doing those commands, the easier it will be in the longer term, and a more controlled Springer Spaniel you'll have. So consistency is certainly key. Same if you're teaching them on the stop whistle or any other type of whistle commands if they're out working. Consistency also applies to correcting Springer Spaniel behavior as well. So be consistent in how you ensure the dog knows that they've done something wrong. And as you would with a child, it's just making sure they know the difference between right and wrong. Same thing would apply to giving them treats or giving them foods. Whenever I give Pip any food, I would always make her give me a paw or lie down. Paw. Other paw. Okay, get on. And from consistency, we now move to the second building block, which is control. And ultimately, control is all about ensuring the Springer Spaniel does what you want them to do and not what the Springer Spaniel wants to do. Now, that all begins with obedience training. So when you teach them how to sit and teach them how to stay, it's making sure that they do it rather than do it for a couple of seconds and then get bored and move on. So having that control is key.
Come back. Gonna have a drink.
The biggest issue I've had with Pip is walking to heel on the lead.
So Pip always knows there is a cat on this road further down here. And normally she'll try and pull a little bit on the lead to try and get up front to try and find it. But even if you let the lead go, as I'll show you in a second, she won't go anywhere. Watch. Come. Come. Come.
They generally want to pull and go, and especially if they're in a routine where they know where they're going to walk every day and they know there's something exciting coming, like a big field to run around in, typically they'll want to get there as quickly as they can. So the way I've done the control part of walking on the lead with Pip is first of all to use a slip lead, and typically whenever she walks slightly further ahead of me, I'll give her a tug on the lead, so obviously it tightens and she knows to sort of stop. I'll always make her then come back to my heel before we set off walking again. A lot of other tips you'll read here are for you to change direction with the Spaniel as you go on a walk, rather than let them dictate which direction you're going to go. Again, this just reinforces the fact that you are in control of the walk and they're following you rather than being in control themselves. But again, if you do it consistently and the Spaniel realizes that you're in control all the time, everything will become easier. It'll become easier for you and it will become easier for the Spaniel. And the last of the building blocks is companionship. Springers want to be loved and they will also give you a lot of love in return. But to build up sort of companionship between you and the dog, especially in the early years, is to get down and rough and tumble with them. Even when you are playing, say, fetch, or if you're working with a dummy, it's just making sure that whenever they bring it back, you don't get into a game of tug of war. Essentially, you turn your back and ignore them and wait for them to drop it. And then essentially, they'll soon realize every time they bring it back and drop it, it means they get more play out of you, essentially. So it's just learning those little tips and traits to have a really happy, healthy, playful, under control Springer Spaniel. Okay, so now let's run through some of the questions that I've been asked from you, the viewers. Many of you asked what food Pip eats. Pip eats a dog food called Millie's Wolf Heart. In the morning, she just has a dry bowl of Millie's Wolf Heart food, and then in the evening she'll have a full bowl of Millie's Wolf Heart dried food with a little bit of butcher's tripe, wet food mixed in with it, and she's more than happy. How often does Pip get exercised? A few people have asked how much exercise Springer Spaniels need, and the answer is a lot, generally. So Pip gets a 45-minute walk in the morning at least, and she normally has a 10 or 15-minute walk at lunch, just as I walk from home to the office or back. And then in the evening, she'll have a 45-minute to an hour walk then as well. So probably a good solid 2 hours a day is needed. Do I wash her? The answer is no. I think she's had 3 or 4 showers in her life when she was properly caked in mud and got hosed down outside. Generally, I think that the food that you choose will go a long way into how good the coat stays and how good the coat shines and lasts. So obviously the food plays a part, good exercise plays a part, but no, generally I've barely ever washed her. Her coat's just lovely and smooth and soft anyway. How often do I groom her? I don't think she's ever been groomed. Dogs generally will groom themselves and clean themselves. Occasionally I brush her ears because they can get quite matted if she's going and working through like thorny bushes and things like that. She'll get sort of those, you know, those stickly balls. She'll get those stuck in her ears, which are a right pain to get out. So occasionally I'll brush her ears to get those out, but generally she'll groom herself. How long can I leave my Springer Spaniel for? Good question. So occasionally we've had to leave Pip if we were going somewhere that we couldn't take dogs. My rule of thumb is generally I wouldn't leave them for longer than 4 hours, but I would also say that depends on the dog. Pip's very calm at home. If she's coming into season, she gets a little bit antsy and wants to go and dig holes. I think it also depends on the age of the dog, so how long you can leave them for. So typically if they're a puppy sort of younger than 12 months, really leave them for longer than 2 or 3 hours, to be honest, because because you don't know you don't know what they're going to destroy, because she would need a wee at some point and probably need to have a poo, so you don't want that happening in the house, nor do you want the Spaniel to feel bad about having to do that in the house because they couldn't get out at the same time. How does she sit or lie so still when I'm recording these videos? I think that's to do with everything I've mentioned already in this video, to be honest. A lot of it's to do with control, a lot of it's to do with companionship. And typically she generally wants to be in the same room as me, and if she's on a nice comfy chair when I'm doing the recording, she'll generally stay there. And I think she likes being on video deep down, even though she's hiding now, she does like to be on video. And the last question is, apparently the more spots on a Springer Spaniel's nose, the naughtier they are. Can you shed any light on this legend? Pip doesn't have any spots on her nose, and I wouldn't say she's that naughty, so there could be some truth in that. Although, again, I'm not the expert, so can't judge. But if your Spaniel has a lot of spots on the nose and they're very naughty, please let me know in the comments, and then we can judge over time as to how many people let us know in this video, and then we'll put that legend to the test. Okay guys, that's everything for the Springer Spaniel training tips video. If there's anything I've missed, or there are any other tips or questions or comments that you have, please put them in the comments below. So thanks for watching, and I'll try and get Pip to say goodbye. I'm going to say bye-bye. Bye-bye.